Hello, I'm Keri Poeppe, and I'm ready to be evil. So, welcome, join me on this journey. I am the project manager for Electric Citizen, a local design and development company here in Minneapolis, and people who know me have seen pictures of me with my cat a lot. As a project manager, I have this core set of values that I bring to my work. I try to be empathetic and understanding. I want to figure out kind of what's driving our clients and their users, and understand what's motivating them, what they might be feeling and thinking, and really just use that understanding to help them through a project that typically is going to be a lot of work and involve a lot of change as well. The other thing I try to do during projects is just show people appreciation and make sure that clients feel recognized, that I say thank you and acknowledge the good things that they do, praise what they're doing well, and generally, be authentic and build the relationship with the client. Some people, I think, would describe me as humorous. I've even heard the word folksy thrown around a little bit. And I'm okay with that. Because, as it so happened, Dale Carnegie was a little folksy too, people. And his approach, almost 100 years ago, is pretty similar to what I find works for me most of the time these days. Be nice, be positive. Give honest and sincere appreciation. Be careful with your words. I think praise in public, criticize with care in private. Be a good listener and let people talk about themselves. And then, Peter Block, kind of this consulting guru and author who just put out foundational books in the 80s about business consulting, really took it to the level of saying, be authentic with people, have the relationship. And yeah, you know what? I think all of that works 90 to 95% of the time. Being nice is good. And then there's that 10% of the time when it just doesn't work, right? People are stubborn. People won't move on making a decision. They won't do what I want them to do, right? That's a little annoying. And the problem is that as a project manager, I'm caring for the team, I'm building the team, I've got relationships with the team, I want them to feel good about themselves, I relentlessly believe in the power of the team to do great things, but I don't have direct power over them. And when people are being stubborn and slow to move and aren't doing what I want, there's that gap that I need to figure out how to bridge. Being nice isn't always enough. I'm not a fan of the nuclear option. I really don't want to do an end around to somebody's boss. And I'm not this guy. Not by a long shot, can't pull it off, don't have that bit set. So, what do I do when I'm feeling like a hag? I need to get my way. I need to get stuff done, and somebody else is the problem. I've got people I need to move from nope to being my hero, doing what I want, and saying it with an as-you-wish kind of attitude. I, over the past few months, got started reading books like The Righteous Mind and Evil by Design and Influence, The Art of Persuasion. And because kind of the way our country is, we're trying to figure out who the heck we are and why the heck we think the way we do. And I kind of started realizing that, gosh, there are things that online marketers are doing that I could probably use in my work as a project manager when I need to persuade people to do things and nudge them along. I mean, this is what online marketers do all the time. They shape the way we perceive things. They influence our decisions. They get us to do stuff that we wouldn't normally do. So, my journey was to look at what online marketers were doing and see if I couldn't bring some of their practices into what I do day to day as a project manager. I'm going to look at this question through in 3 areas. How do I influence decisions? How do I influence actions? And how can I use marketing methods to manage relationships as well? So, overcoming doubt. As project managers, yes, I'm going to geek out on The Princess Bride. It should have been Harry Potter. I get that. I just don't have...
Oh, it should be Princess Bride.
Okay, it's Princess Bride. We're rocking The Princess Bride today. Clients look to us as project managers, well, as our clients look to us for ideas, for, they want us to be thought leaders. Many times as project managers, we're probably one of the first people they might come to for a piece of advice, or the first person that they're going to pose a question to. And hopefully, when the client engaged with us, they did so because they believe in our judgment. But there are always points in a project where people aren't quite buying into things. And the problem is that changing somebody's opinion is a cliffs of insanity, uphill kind of battle, right? As Dale Carnegie would say, when you win an argument, you haven't really won the argument, because you've either won the argument and lost the person, or you've lost the argument and you've lost the argument. So it wasn't. It's not a good outcome in either case. And the other issue is that people don't like to change their minds, and I'll talk more about this, but there are points in the decision-making process where we can have some influence. So the first point is where people are feeling uncertain. And this kind of gets back to something called, I'm sure you guys have all heard of it, cognitive dissonance. And that's the discomfort that we feel when what we believe or feel or do just they aren't in alignment. The obvious example of cognitive dissonance is people who smoke and really like it and also know that it's going to kill them. And, smokers will go to extraordinary lengths to convince themselves that that isn't a problem, that I don't need to feel uncomfortable about it, I'm going to die young, blah, 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 blah. It's all okay because I'm living for the moment with my smoke. If we as project managers sense that a client is at this point of uncertainty, it's an opportunity for us to step in and really shore them up. And how do online marketers do that? Let's think about the websites that we build. If we are encouraging someone to buy a product, we're presenting all kinds of evidence that the decision is going to be a great one. We give people lots of content to convince them that they will be happy with this decision and that buyer's remorse, which is a form of cognitive dissonance, isn't a problem. We use things like testimonials and case studies and images, again, all in different places at different moments to reinforce the idea that the service, the product, the company is awesome. This is something that we can do as project managers. We can, at different points in conversations, offer people perspective. We can share examples of the solution already implemented. And again, just shore people up if we're feeling that they are unsure. Social proof is another great way to overcome cognitive dissonance. People are cows in that we have a herd mentality, and we are going to move in the direction, folksy humor, we're going to move in the direction that the rest of the crowd does. So if somebody's feeling uncertain about a decision, it's an opportunity to use social proof and have the message that supports supports what you're wanting them to do, supports the decision that you're pushing them toward. Have supportive messages come from other people around them, from other sources, maybe within your team, but you want to reinforce the message that, yep, this is great. Yeah, glad you did this. This is going to be the best thing ever. Social proof works best if it comes from peers, colleagues, people who are at kind of the same level as the decision maker. And the other thing that can really help someone overcome uncertainty is getting them to publicly commit to it. Because by gosh, once I say, we're doing this, I gotta follow through. Because if I don't, then I got this big old pile of cognitive dissonance and uncomfortableness sitting right there in my lap. So, there are certainly ways that we can manipulate meetings, tools like Basecamp, to make sure that we get that public commitment out of people to a specific decision. So that's when people are perhaps most influenceable, when they're sitting there in that space of potentially feeling uncertain about a decision. The problem is that there's also this kind of moment when they're flat out wrong, and nobody wants to hear flat out wrong. There is something called confirmation bias, which, well, first of all, flat out admitting you're wrong is very difficult. But confirmation bias means that not only am I going to believe I'm right, but I'm going to augur in by going out and finding all the information I need to support my pre-existing belief. And what's really interesting is that the smarter people are, the better they are at finding the facts and interpreting them in such a way that supports all their pre-existing beliefs. So, this is not a good hill to die on. It's better to go around that hill. The way that marketers do it is to find areas of consensus, and even Dale Carnegie would, in his book, talks about this as well. Point out similarities. Point out where people are doing things that are already in alignment, or maybe they've done things that are already in alignment with the direction that you want them to go. And as a part of it, point out the big picture. Keep the client focused on the big game, the big end, the big win, and move them towards something that's very positive and away from the augured in point of contention. Now, there's another way to come at this too, and that is by planting the seeds of doubt. And I'm going to admit that I do this. And I didn't really realize how much I did it until I started talking about this technique to one of my bosses, and he's like, yep. And what I find myself doing, unfortunately, is shaping my doubts as questions. Golly, I think, isn't a user going to feel really uncomfortable if they have to do this? Whoa, and yes, they all start to tremble in fear and rethink everything, right? Yeah. But it's a tool that push pullers have used for a long time. I think one of the most famous examples of a push pull was George Bush challenging Ann Richards in the 1980s in a Texas gubernatorial election, where he had callers reaching out to people and saying, if you knew that Ann Richards' cabinet was populated with lesbians, would you vote for Ann Richards? And they weren't gathering data at all. They were just planting the seeds of distrust and doubt and scary things. And turns out it works. That kind of misinformation stays in our brains in this really insidious kind of way that turns out can be quite useful. And so my takeaway from this was, wow, I'm going to try this even more. So, planting the seeds of doubt. Now, so changing information, overcome the confirmation bias, overcome the cognitive dissonance, and look for opportunities to plant the seeds of doubt. 3 ways to get people to start thinking the way you want them to think. The other challenge that we face as project managers is just getting people to do what you want. I'm waiting. How often don't we feel like that? There are different ways to get people to nudge them in the direction that you'd like them to go. And one of the first ones is just to make it easy for people to do it. Prime people to the decision or the action that you want to take by, gosh, we've all seen this on websites, right? Where there's recommended in little parentheses next to an option. Or recommended, shoot, I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. But labeling the preferred option in such a way to call it out and potentially using imagery to do that as well is one tool for just priming people to do what you want them to do. Another option, list your preferred option first and make sure that you aren't giving people too many options to think through. So what does that meeting agenda look like? Your first preferred course of direction is listed at the top of those 3 items. It's got recommended next to it, and it helps people just, well, stay focused on what you want them to do. A little more devious is just plain making it difficult for people to not do what you want them to do. How do marketers do this? How many times have you had to click unsubscribe to get out of a mailing list, right? Or change the default option to what you really wanted to do. I mean, we're lazy people, and marketers are counting on that. And by goodness, we can take advantage of that laziness in our projects. So put up some barriers to not doing what you, put up some barriers and make it difficult to not pursue the option that you want people to do. And then this last one, it feels like really evil to me, but take advantage of the fact that people get tired of making decisions. So, when you got an enchilada that you want them to make sure they swallow whole, put it at the end of the agenda. Tire them out, put them through their paces. And then when they get to the end, then you work through then you come to your enchilada. You've given them the recommended enchilada option, and it's the default. And you've worn them down. I'm a nice person, I promise. Another tool, give something to get something. Now, this is really interesting, and here's where I admit that I do this, and I just started realizing how often. I'm looking around the room and thinking how many people know my husband. Okay, this doesn't leave this room. But reciprocity. As humans, we're conditioned to want to pay back our debts. If somebody does something for us, we do something for them. That's why they hand out perfume samples, right? Because if I take that sample, then I'm like, okay, fine, I'll listen. I hate perfume, but what do and I'm going to stick around, and I might actually buy something. Reciprocity is something that we can use in our favor. Do someone a favor. And then ask for something. What did I do this morning? I went out and I got my husband his favorite coffee and a nice little sweet potato treat. And then I said, oh, and honey, I need you to play girlfriend for me and help me with my outfit. He hates that, but I primed him because I'd given him coffee and a super yummy breakfast. I'm not proud. I just didn't always realize that I was doing this. So, prime people, the act of doing something for somebody will prime them to then do something for you. Once I've already done a small thing, I'm actually then primed to do a bigger thing. Second example of Keri taking advantage of her husband. Last night, my husband gave me a lift down to the party. Very nice, very nice. So what did I do? I called him back at the end. Would you come pick me up? He'd already done it. And so he was primed to do it again. Happily married 17 years, I promise. So prime them, move them along the scale, And then if you need to, so perhaps some time has elapsed between when you did the original favor and now what you need to ask. The trick is to remind people of what you did for them. And doing so puts them back in that space of, I'm in debt, I need to return this favor. I need to complete the circle of reciprocity. I'll be honest, when it comes to projects, I like to think this is because I'm a nice person, but I really do believe early on in making things easy for people, doing the little bits of extra. I think of it like building up the relationship, right? Putting some capital in the bank for when you're going to need it, because there's always a point where a project gets hard. But now it's starting to feel like reciprocity just a little bit, and I'm a tiny bit uncomfortable with it. Having said that, it works. Another way to approach this is to go big with your first ask, and then ask for what you really want. So the concept here is that if you ask somebody for something big, something that you know they aren't going to say yes to, they're going to say no, and that's just fine. But you know what else? They'll feel guilty. And then you can go back and ask for what you really want. I do this too. My husband and I love to go backpacking. He prefers shorter trips. I like longer trips. So I'm like, so hon, 100 miles through the Sierras, let's do it. He says no. I know he's saying no. So when I propose that 75-mile trip, he's all in. It works. It's terrible, but it works. Because people feel guilty. And you can use that guilt to your advantage. When you're doing so, acknowledge that that first ask was, kind of uncomfortable, not something they really wanted to do. Present your new request as a compromise, like I said. And as you're doing that, also reinforce all the things that you already have in common. We both really like backpacking. The mountains are awesome. We're going to feel great after this trip. And you would be surprised, at least I was surprised, at how often it works. Now, you do have to be ready for somebody to actually say yes to that first request. So this is the whole be careful what you wish for moment. But I'm just shocked at how often I see it working. And when you start paying attention to it, it's something. Now, I'm not sure that anybody at this point should be taking relationship advice from me, given what I just spelled out. But there are things here that marketers can tell us about managing relationships. And as a project manager, it really is, I think, our number one job to manage the team, to take care of the team, and we're the ones that are keeping an eye on the people risks. So hopefully it isn't this, right? Right? Turns out there are some tools that we have for bridging relationships before they hit this point. Flattery. And that saying flattery will get you everywhere, turns out it really will. Flattery is something that marketers use all the time. It puts us in this position of feeling good, even when we know that it's total crap. Even when we know it's insincere, our brains just get all warm and fuzzy because somebody said something really nice to us. And when we try to correct for it, which most of us do, when we, that car salesman is like, well, don't you, blah, 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 and I'm like, yeah, whatever. Oh, but I feel so good right now. We try to correct for it, but the effect of the compliment tends to last much longer than our conscious correction actually does. Now, when you do this, when marketers do this, for example, on a website, they will, like somebody who's selling green technology or is trying to sell a green product, you care about the earth. We all love nature. There's the affinity, and there's the compliment, and there's the infinity, and then they ask you to do something, right? Buy the product that's green. The trick is matching the request to the compliment. If I want someone to be decisive, I'm gonna look for shape my compliment around moments when they were decisive in the past, where I trusted their decision making and their leadership. Then I'm gonna sneak in my request that they actually move ahead in the direction that I want. Similarly, if you feel like a relationship is a little rocky, ask somebody to do you a favor. Thank them. Don't return the favor. That leaves people with cognitive dissonance about their relationship with you. I just did that person a favor. I hate that person. Very uncomfortable. And the way that we resolve that is by changing the way that we actually think about the person. Ben Franklin wrote about this. It's interesting. He was in a fight with a legislator. He asked the guy to loan him a book. And Ben Franklin read the book, returned it, said thank you. And from there on out, the two of them had this really good relationship. People, again, it's the reciprocity and cognitive dissonance that you can use to your advantage if things start to feel a little uncomfortable. Another way to build a relationship is to just use your own faults and mistakes. People feel more comfortable with people who are, honest about what they maybe have done wrong, and there are actually studies showing how we are more comfortable around a rock star person if they share their flaws or share their mistakes. This can work to your advantage. If something in a project isn't quite going right, of course you'd acknowledge it because bad news doesn't get better with age, and you wouldn't want to cover up something that really is going to impact the client negatively. But look at doing it sooner, and look at doing it even if you wouldn't necessarily need to mention it. You consider using that to your advantage. Machiavelli, and here I'm going to get some traction out of that poli-sci degree I got all those years ago. Machiavelli recommended that leaders actually manufacture crises to shore up support behind them. Can't think of anybody doing that today. Anyway, exploit your mistakes. Look at that as a way to continue to build the relationship. So, in conclusion, take advantage of cognitive dissonance. Look for ways to work around confirmation bias. Look for the reciprocity loop. Use that to your advantage. Exploit the powers of flattery. Be nice, right? Dale Carnegie, he was right. And 90% of the time, that really, really works. But keep a Prince Humperdinck card in your back pocket. And, of course, have fun storming the castle. Was that trip down 80s awesomeness? Awesome, there we go.
On every
Questions?
2 hours.
What?
It's on every 2 hours.
Oh, I never see it. That's funny. So, questions? Does anybody find themselves using these things? Come on, I know there are savvy marketing folks in here.
I've read most of the books you mentioned.
Yeah?
Yeah. I was pretty much aware of the stories.
Good.
So.
Good. All right. Well, I'll see you all out there. Be careful of women asking for favors, right? And paying you compliments. Thank you.
Have a show of defense.
Now you know what to do.